From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
A different kind of dairy.
It's probably some of the richest milk there is in the nation.
What caused 2 teachers to leave California for a life in the natural state? The science behind those cattle losses in Kansas.
That is the highest overnight low temperature we have ever seen in Dodge City, Kansas.
What caused producers to lose over 2,000 head? And new legislation that could change the cattle markets gains steam on Capitol Hill.
We've had too much consolidation in the meatpacking industry.
The question that I have is whether the proposals before us this morning are the solutions to those problems.
The next step, right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. 2 bills that could impact the entire cattle industry are now headed to the full Senate. The Senate Ag Committee giving its stamp of approval to the Meat and Poultry Special Investigator Act and the Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act. But it was not a unanimous vote, with Republican Senators John Boozman of Arkansas and Roger Marshall of Kansas casting no votes. Now, we've been following this legislation since it was first talked about. The Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act was introduced by farm state senators including Chuck Grassley of Iowa and Deb Fischer of Nebraska, John Tester of Montana, and Ron Wyden of Oregon. Now, they argue it will improve competition and ensure more fairness through robust price discovery and transparency. The Meat and Poultry Special Investigator Act would create a new USDA office dedicated to enforcing competition rules under the Packers and Stockyards Act.
Investments in genetics and breeding decisions and specialized marketing have brought real returns to ranch families that have chosen to take those steps. These investments have kept families ranching while producing high-quality beef demanded by consumers. If the incentive for those investments is taken away and the focus becomes producing the most pounds for the lowest cost, I think the industry, our ranch families, and our rural communities will all suffer. If we insert the federal government into day-to-day business decisions.
Over the past 2 years, we have witnessed voluntary industry efforts to increase negotiated trade. While there was some success, ultimately, by the industry's own standards, these voluntary efforts failed because of the packers' lack of participation. That brings us here today. We know more market transparency and price discovery are needed.
Now, Senator Grassley says he is confident the full Senate will have the votes to clear the 2 bills. He is hoping they come up for a vote after the July break. Now, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association issuing a statement shortly after the committee vote calling the mandate bills harmful, saying, quote, rather than embrace the freedom of that marketing system, Congress is instituting a one-size-fits-all policy that will hurt cattle producers' livelihoods. Cattle markets are finally returning to normal after pandemic-fueled uncertainty, but these heavy-handed mandates will stifle innovation and limit marketing opportunities, end quote. Now, the North American Meat Institute also commenting here, saying that last week, one cattle marketing analyst described the high prices in the cattle market right now as stratospheric, and that the beef and cattle markets are continuing to behave predictably given supply and demand and do not need government mandates and intervention. Now, it supplied this graphic that it says shows prices for cattle rose to 7-year highs last year. It says this year prices are 17.5% above last year's prices. It's a major move that could lower the skyrocketing prices at the gas pump. President Biden saying he's close to making a decision on whether to support a federal gas tax holiday. And as Cole Higgins reports, the administration is looking into sending gas rebate cards to Americans.
As the pain at the pump grows, the White House is considering a gas tax holiday.
That's what I'm considering.
President Joe Biden says he's close to making a decision on whether to support a temporary break from the federal gas tax. Also on Monday, the Biden administration said it's looking into gas rebate cards.
It's one step in the right direction. There are other things that the president could do as well.
It comes as the Federal Reserve takes drastic action to tame historic inflation. But experts say more needs to be done to help ease the financial burden on U.S. consumers. Just as the busy summer travel season gets underway, consumers are facing skyrocketing prices at the gas pump. On Monday, the national average price for a gallon of gas was $4.98. That's a few cents lower than last week's record of $5.01. A year ago, the average was $3.07. Meanwhile, the Biden administration is working to lower fears that the U.S. economy is heading toward a recession.
A recession is not inevitable. The president really wants to have a steady and stable recovery.
I'm Cole Higgins reporting.
A break in the gas tax could help farmers. The Soy Transportation Coalition estimating the average farmer could save up to 95 cents a day on diesel with just a federal suspension of the fuel tax, and $2.51 a day if both federal and state diesel taxes were suspended. Something that is heading lower, shipping rates, especially for ships traveling from China to the U.S. Experts say shipping prices have cooled in recent months as some U.S. importers lower merchandise orders amid concerns about elevated levels of inventory and uncertainty about continued strength in consumer spending. Now, freight rates from China to the West Coast stood at just over $9,500 a box last week. That's down 34% from the start of the year and down 50% from last year. Yellowstone National Park partially reopened yesterday after historic flooding led to the closure of all 5 entrances last week. The park's southern loop is now open to the public with limitations. The northern loop is expected to reopen within 2 weeks. About 80% of the park will then be open to visitors. The Corn Belt is finally getting a break from the heat, but in the south, high heat is continuing to stress crops. Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joins us with an update. Matt.
Yeah, Clinton, that's right. And we've got that heat, that humidity continuing in parts of the south and east especially, but even through the middle part of the country, as you can see right here. And as we head through the rest of this week and into the weekend, that ridge, it's really not going to go anywhere. That means the heat, the humidity staying with us. Northern Great Lakes might get a little bit of a break as we head into early next week, and it might be pretty unsettled across the northern tier, but staying hot, humid, and dry in the south. And here's a look at the temperatures this afternoon. We've got a lot of 90s and even some triple digits on the map from parts of Florida to Texas and even all the way up into the Dakotas, staying very, very unsettled in the west, in the northwest, but then hot and dry from Texas and the plains onto the east. And you can really see how this root zone has changed. Upper Midwest, right through the center part of the country, parts of the Corn Belt now starting to really dry out. And we could even see an increase in those drought conditions right through the Mississippi River Valley and up into the Great Lakes and parts of the Corn Belt as we head over the next week or two. And we'll get an update in that as we head through tomorrow or this afternoon, and then we'll bring that to you tomorrow morning. And Lee of Circle, Montana, sharing this photo, and he says so far in his corner of the world, they've had great growing conditions. He says hopefully they can put this one in the bin, but he adds that doesn't really matter because he says his daughter is the best thing he'll ever grow. Thanks for sharing, Lee. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
A bit of a wild day in markets on Wednesday, including a near 30-cent drop in soybeans. We'll get details on that coming up next. And later, what caused 2 teachers to leave California and set up a dairy in Arkansas? You'll see why it's a little different in the country.
Got equipment to sell privately but tired of scams and hassles? Visit MachineryPete.com and click Sell Mine. MachineryPete.com, the simple and secure way to buy and sell equipment online.
We're joined today by Matt Bennett with agmarket.net. Matt, let's talk about markets today. Kind of a topsy-turvy day, especially for soybeans, kind of under pressure here midweek.
Yeah, you know, we started yesterday. I'll tell you what, we gave up a lot as far as wheat was concerned. The corn market struggled. Actually, relatively speaking, beans performed a little better yesterday than what corn did. But I'll tell you what, it sure looked rough today. You know, you gave up the $15 handle on November beans, and, you know, there's certainly a fair amount of pressure there. I think a lot that's going on, you know, whenever you look over into the energies, you look at soybean oil, there's some pressures out there. It's not the time of year to get super concerned like it is maybe with corn. We're getting awfully close to your really critical time. So some of this hot and dry weather, it's just not really getting into the bean market right now.
Yeah, would you say it would be fuels and oil with the pressure on the bean market here at midweek?
Yeah, that and the fact that technically, we broke through some support levels, I mean, it just looked pretty rough, all across the bean board. And so can we go back up? I mean, there's actually some gaps there, and I'm not so sure that we don't get some excitement as we get closer to this acreage report. There's still a lot of unknowns here, and it's an extremely tight situation. But as evidenced by the bean basis backing off just a little bit, I'll tell you what, I think that there's enough beans to go around, at least for the time being. So it's tight, but I don't know that it's critically tight.
You mentioned corn and you mentioned weather, obviously something we're keeping a close eye on. What's your read on that market here with this prediction for continued hot and dry weather?
Okay, so, you come in this week, and I think a lot of folks expected that we would get a really strong market, 3-day weekend, a holiday shortened week. Actually, you don't have much moisture in this forecast. What you've got is temps that are a little bit cooler. The problem is you got to still have moisture. And I'll tell you, in my part of the world, in central Illinois, there's a lot of production that comes out of that area. It's dry.
Absolutely. I appreciate the insights as always, Matt. Thank you for being here. We'll be back with more AgDay coming up in just a minute.
To contact Matt Bennett at Ag Market, call 844-4AG-MARKET or visit their website at www.agmarket.net. It's time to sign up for the 2022 United Pork Americas Conference in Orlando, Florida. Register today at unitedporkamericas.com and join us September 7th through the 9th.
Meteorologist Matt Yurisovic joining us here. And Matt, I don't think anybody really wants to see what you have drawn right here on this monitor, but we're watching for the possibility of a drought.
Yeah, what we would call it a flash drought, where drought conditions haven't existed, but now over the next week or two, we could see rapid development of those drought conditions in that circled area. And that area extending from parts of Texas like Dallas through Oklahoma towards Memphis, parts of Tennessee, and then right up through the Mississippi River Valley and into parts of the Corn Belt and the Great Lakes. That's where we could be seeing rapid drought development. And we haven't seen many spots here. And then in the last week or so, we've seen a couple of these abnormally dry spots pop up, and that's something we're going to continue to watch. And later today, we'll get another update on this drought monitor, and we'll bring that to you tomorrow morning right here on Ag Day. So here's a look at the precipitation over the next couple of days. Now, you see a little bit of that coming right through like Omaha back into really the Four Corners region, New Mexico, getting blasted by some monsoon rains there. And then heading towards the East Coast, some showers, some thunderstorms, parts of the interior, mid-Atlantic up into upstate New York, and then some more showers and storms down into parts of Florida. But it's this area right in here that we're going to have to keep an eye on. And not only are we going to be at a lack of rain, but it's also going to be hot and humid, especially down across the Gulf Coast. You can see low temperatures tomorrow morning, still in the 60s, 70s, even a couple 80s on the board. That's going to keep it very, very humid. And here's the high temperatures as we head through tomorrow afternoon. 90s, triple digits, all the way up into the Great Lakes, upper Midwest, and right through the center of the country as well. And you can see there's not a whole lot on the map. High pressure really dominating, a couple of weak low pressure systems, and through the Four Corners region, a couple of those monsoon showers, heavier showers, kind of training over the same areas. One chance for rain there in parts of the Midwest. Otherwise, not much is going to go on as we head over the next 4 to 6 days. There's very little chance of rain, and that's because the jet stream well to the north, keeping it very warm and humid all the way into the upper Midwest and the northern plain states. So this heat's really not going to go anywhere, especially over at least the next week, potentially 2 to 3 weeks down the road. So that's something we'll continue to track right here on Ag Day. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Bainbridge, Georgia, sunny and hot, a high of 104 degrees. Sunny with afternoon and evening storms in Billings, Montana, a high near 88 degrees. And Santa Fe, New Mexico, heavy rain and thunderstorms, a high near 80 degrees.
Coming up, new information about how many cattle were lost in that heat wave that hit the plains. And there's a new top cattle auctioneer in the country. See him in action next.
Agribusiness Today is brought to you exclusively by CHS, your partner in the field providing precision agriculture solutions to farmers across the country.
State officials are putting the number of cattle that died in a southwest Kansas heat wave at roughly 2,000 head. Now that number is based on the facilities that contacted the Kansas Department of Health and Environment for help disposing of carcasses. Now we've been keeping you updated on this. Surging triple-digit temperatures, no wind, and a lack of overnight cooling are being blamed on the deaths. USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey pulled data from Dodge City, one of the oldest weather stations in that region. Now he says June started out cool, with Dodge City seeing temperatures in the mid-40s as recently as June 2nd. 10 days later, while some cattle were still shedding their winter coats, a heat wave hit.
Saw 4 consecutive days of triple-digit heat. Now that is somewhat unusual for mid-June, but what really caught my eye were the overnight low temperatures, especially on June 13th, when we saw Dodge City reporting an overnight low temperature of 83 degrees. That is absolutely unheard of for this part of the country. In fact, going back almost 150 years, that is the highest overnight low temperature we have ever seen in Dodge City, Kansas.
Now, Rippey says there's a ridge of high pressure that's set up across the majority of the country. He warns those same conditions could happen again this summer. You're watching the 2022 World Livestock Auctioneer Champion in action. Will Epperly of Dunlap, Iowa, was named the champion at the 58th annual competition held at Shipshewana Auction and Trading Place in Shipshewana, Indiana. Now, it was put on by the Livestock Marketing Association. This was Epperly's 12th year competing at the event. Epperly, clearly moved by the honor, he says he is a self-taught livestock auctioneer. In all, 30 other contestants also qualified through 3 regional qualifying events. As a new champion, Epperly will spend the next year traveling the country, sharing his auctioneering skills with other livestock auction markets and acting as a spokesperson on behalf of the livestock marketing industry and the LMA. Coming up, we continue to celebrate Dairy Month by heading to Arkansas to a dairy that's a little different in the country. Now, in honor of Dairy Month, we're looking at a unique Arkansas dairy nestled in the Ozark Mountains. Scott and Tessa McCormick were looking for a change when they moved to the state from Los Angeles County back in 2011. And as the Arkansas Farm Bureau reports, they found it.
We were both teachers in California, and my husband was inner city, LA County, and I always like to make the joke that goat kids are a lot less likely to talk back to you. So he was ready for a change. And had been looking into doing something different. And I actually loved teaching, though, I must admit. But I had some major health changes, and my doctors said I had to quit, and I was supposed to de-stress. Sometimes I laugh and think we went with a farm. But a lot of times, as you can see, it's beautiful and serene. And we moved here 2011 in February, and he was in Vermont training in April. By September of 2011, we had a small herd of goats that we were milking, and there is the raw milk law in the state of Arkansas that covers goat and cow. There's the other extreme where you have the USDA grade A kind of a level, which is where we're at, and we can make an end product and sell it. A lot of people don't understand the difference between creamery and dairy, and we are both, and we're a farmstead dairy. So creameries buy milk. That's why we are called White River Creamery. We do buy local USDA cow milk to make our cheeses with, and then we also milk our own goats, which makes us a goat dairy, and a farmstead goat dairy, meaning we use that product through the USDA certifications to make cheese as well. Soaps and lotions are a little bit easier. We don't have to certify those. But we do cow cheeses and goat cheeses, and we are the only ones in Arkansas at this time doing that. Butterfat is such a big deal. You know you're on a dairy when they're bragging about butterfat, that it has to be tested third party. So our girls have tested out at 9.8% butterfat. So it's like cream. It's probably some of the richest milk there is in the nation. Scott's dream had always been for this to be a family farm. You know, as your kids get older and they go off with their own dreams, he worried we started too late. But I tell him, well, we've got to let them do their dreams. Well, we have ours. And if they coincide again and some of them come back to the farm and work for us, then that's great. And if not, it's a beautiful place. We love it. We're not planning on going anywhere. And, you know, we love to enjoy our kids on the farm, even when they're not working with us. So.
And our thanks to the Arkansas Farm Bureau for sharing that story. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Quentin Griffiths. Have a great day out in farm country.